There we go. Welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Today's March 9. Can you believe it? We're already in March, and this is the SIG API Machinery bi-weekly meeting. We have two topics mainly in the agenda today. Maybe the meeting can be shorter, we will see. I think we have Jordan and we have interested people, so I think Natasha is safe to go for, unless you were waiting for somebody specifically that didn't join yet, and then we can do it second.
I know we can start.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I can give some context. So I'm from SIG CLI. I work on Kustomize, and Kustomize is maintaining its own internal fork of GoYAML because we had some critical changes that we needed to get in before a code freeze last year that the GoYAML maintainer agreed they would accept, and then kind of disappeared. So we're stuck with our fork. And it seems like we're not the only ones who need changes in GoYAML. And with one unresponsive maintainer, it's basically an unmaintained repo. So this request is to make an official fork of it. And then I talked to Jordan briefly, and he suggested folding it into the SIG's YAML repo, which is why I've brought it to this meeting.
A stupid question here. What is SIG CMO?
YAML. Yeah, YAML, sorry. YAML. SIG's
We
YAML.
already have a sigs.k8s.io/YAML library, which layers some things on top of GoYAML, like JSON to YAML conversion primarily, I think.
Is that the old project from Sam?
It is. It's a fork.
Wow. I didn't know that was still there. Okay.
So much archaeology.
I mean, we forked that because he stopped maintaining it.
Yeah. So the state of our YAML libraries right now is that we have 3. We have GoYAML v2, which is what Kubernetes proper uses. We have GoYAML v3, which is what at least Kustomize and maybe others use, but which had incompatibilities with v2. And so restoring those compatibilities, they were pretty surface level, I think, around like default output changed from unwrapped lines to wrapped lines, and maybe an indent level. Like it semantically, it's the same, but if you're expecting like byte for byte equality, which a lot of unit tests do and a lot of naive clients do, it broke stuff. So those were the types of fixes that Kustomize added back in. So we've got the v2 and the v3 versions of GoYAML, and then we have this SIG's k8s.io/YAML, which wraps v2 currently in order to add the JSON YAML translation layer. So we've got 3. We have 3 YAML libraries. v2 GoYAML is definitely like frozen. v3 YAML is, like Natasha said, it's a single maintainer who's very busy and not very responsive, and has demonstrated, like the v3 version has demonstrated like not a lot of discipline in maintaining v2 compatibility. And then in my comment on this issue, I, as we were going through the field validation stuff, our decoders weren't giving us all the information we needed in some cases when we want to do things like decode and accumulate duplicate fields or unknown fields, problems with the input, but do it in a way that doesn't actually change the behavior of the decoding, so that we can warn users if they're giving us input that is potentially problematic without actually breaking them. So there's no way to do that with the YAML stuff right now for some of the things we want to do. And so we were already sort of trying to figure out how to get that functionality out of the YAML library. So that's one more data point.
So my thought on this is the argument not to do this, as far as I am aware of, is just bandwidth. Are we actually going to maintain it? So if there's volunteers for doing this maintenance, great, I'm in favor. If not, then I'm not sure I want to own another thing that I don't have time to maintain. So I guess since the request is to fold it into this existing fork, is this existing fork actually well maintained?
Its life cycle ended. I didn't even know it was here.
It had, I would call it halfway between like stable frozen, like feature complete, and unmaintained. Like there have been a few fixes, a few changes when we went to strict decoding to try to give better warnings about, like, you're giving us a config file that you typoed a field in, like we should probably tell you that instead of accepting it. So there were things done here in support of that. Yeah.
Well, I think that your most important question, it was his first question, which is, do we have volunteers to maintain going forward?
Depending on what you're looking for maintenance, I actually think a library like this should probably not be very fast moving. So a few scoped changes and then not a lot of change is what I would want to see from this as someone consuming it. So if you're primarily looking for someone to like shepherd in some compatibility fixes, a couple really
the question isn't me, it's not what I'm looking for, right? Yeah, what do we need?
If you're looking for someone to shepherd in compatibility fixes and a couple things for the field validation stuff, and then mostly say no to other things, I'm always willing to look skeptically at stuff and say no. Natasha, maybe as someone consuming the V3 stuff, does that match your expectations from this? Like if you could get the V3 stream compatible with V2,
yeah,
like,
really,
and then have it pretty much be frozen.
Yeah, really the only thing we need is like a small bug fix and then making the indentation thing optional. Other than that, like, we're not looking for people to do like huge maintenance or revamps or anything. We might also have limited bandwidth to help out with this if it's going to be like, if it doesn't need a lot of maintenance, like perhaps the customized people can help out too.
So one thing we did with the JSON fork was be very clear up front that we were not looking to add a lot of features or changes to it. And so if that is our expectation for this as well, that its mission is basically to be a V2 compatible version of V3 with like a very small enumerated list of additional capabilities, if we can be clear about that up front and say, we're not really looking to expand this beyond this set, then I think the maintenance cost will actually be low. And that'll be pretty clear for people. Like what we want to avoid is people coming to this with proposals and features and ideas that just pile up and don't get attention. Like if we can be clear, we're not looking to make changes here and have this be like expanded in a lot of ways.
I think you definitely need to be, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, David.
I was gonna say, I think we definitely need to be prepared for people asking for stuff. You know, like I want comments in my YAML has been on people's list for forever. And I would be not really in favor of adding that in a V3.
Yeah, essential changes only.
Yeah.
essential to the Kubernetes project, not necessarily everybody's pet projects.
There was a question in the issue if we tried, it's a very basic question, if we try to contact this single owner of the fork by other means, like email or externally out of GitHub. I suppose we try that. That would be wouldn't be easier if we contact them and he grant ownership to somebody that is willing to pull these changes into the fork, so we avoid another fork. So two questions, did we try? I can take that if nobody tried.
I guess I don't object to trying that, but I don't expect it to work out.
Okay.
Just because from their perspective, like I just said, things that are essential for Kubernetes and not people's pet project. From their perspective, Kubernetes is a pet project probably. So I don't know why we would expect a special treatment, but it can't hurt to ask. They may want help with other maintenance tasks, which our maintainers may not want to help with. So
thinking about doing it in that direction, I look at the two motivations that I see for this. One is the compatibility issues. So that seems like something that would be of general interest going into the upstream. The other is the field validation, strict, non-strict stuff that we want. I'm less convinced that would be desired upstream. And so I wouldn't really want to sign up Kubernetes contributors to maintain an upstream library and then still not be able to get the one bit of functionality that we really needed. So that's on the input side. On the output side, we would, if we did that, we would still be dependent on an upstream library. And so right now it's very slow moving, mostly because it seems like the single maintainer doesn't have bandwidth. But if it started moving again, started accepting other changes, we'd sort of continuously have to be watching it to make sure that those didn't add new incompatibilities down the road for Kubernetes use cases. So for the compatibility bits that we know of, that seems like it might work. For the features that we want, I'm not sure. And for long-term compatibility, I'm not sure about.
Okay, it sounds like we should just fork it.
Like I said, I'm cautiously in favor of that for those reasons.
David, do you have any thoughts?
I'd be willing to do it. I guess I was right there for the JSON library, but being upfront about not approving more changes.
Have we gotten a substantial amount of pushback in the other ones that we've done that for? Do we have any evidence that if we're clear, it's going to be a problem?
I don't know. YAML, I know people for years, people have come and asked, can I get comments in here?
I mean, I asked for that repeatedly because
so did Steve K, so did I.
But would I yell at this project if the request didn't come from Kube and the request said no random requests? I guess was kind of what I was focusing on more. Do we have evidence that's a problem?
I haven't seen that stuff.
Yeah, nobody's complained to me.
For bugs, so there are at least 3 thorny bugs that I know of that we've inherited from the YAML library. One is around handling of document separators, which Daniel and I just got tagged into something related to that. But one is around the YAML 1.1, 1.2 headers, which aren't being honored. And one is around quoting of strings that only contain hexadecimal numbers, hexadecimal characters.
You had me at YAML, Jordan. You had me at YAML.
Wait, does it actually not handle the document separator correctly?
We don't need to get into that. There are a handful of really thorny actual bugs, like not feature requests, not I want comments in my docs, but bugs that are legitimate, that up until now, it's kind of been, well, here's a workaround and we know it's an issue and the upstream isn't fixing it and we don't have time to fix it. It would not surprise me if requests to fix those bugs resurfaced, which is not unreasonable. It's like, oh, well, now
I think that's totally reasonable to fix
it,
those bugs.
That feels like a positive outcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was looking for, the contrapositive to this, which is when we did client Go and it was a downstream and people got confused and opened PRs and issues there, that was very clearly a Kube project. So that was us communicating poorly about where to focus bugs, and we fixed that eventually. Have we done another fork where non-Kube use cases have gotten significant pushback? I just didn't, maybe you said this and I missed it somewhere. Has anyone ever legitimately confused a Kube fork for a general purpose library downstream that they can add whatever they want to?
I mean,
Nothing.
people interpret internal libraries inside the main Kubernetes repo in that way. So I don't know that we can really prevent that.
Sure. So we can't prevent it, and it's not a problem. It just seems that that seemed like the concern that was listed as a reason not to do this, but that doesn't seem sufficient. And if we're clear in our communication, it's no worse than internal packages, which we're also clear in our communication.
So I guess here's my proposal. Let's go ahead and fork, but before we do, let's write up a new README or something for this repo to explain what the rules are, and just run that by, like, I don't know, David or me or Jordan or Clayton. Like, just run it by somebody to make sure that what we're signing up for is clear. And get the maintainers of this repo to agree to enforce the rules so that we're not inconsistent. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you.
Cool.
Everybody okay with that? Looks like we have an agreement.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great.
Oh, thanks, everyone.
Very good. Do we want to move to the next one? I think I saw, yes, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Jyoti, are you in the call? Yes.
Hi. So this is my first time here. So I have a question, and I don't know if this is the right SIG, and let me know if it's not the right forum. I'm looking for ways to dealing with webhooks. I have a question there. I work for EKS, and when EKS creates cluster, this is like a plain cluster. Users can install anything on it, including webhooks, which can target any resource. What I've seen is, as a platform operator, when clusters get upgraded across different Kubernetes API server versions, new resources are added. API server does add some resources, I think. And when that happens, a failing webhook can stop the process. First, I need to validate in this forum that my understanding is right, and I'm thinking about the problem in the right sense and seeking guidance about maybe I should think about this in a different way of the failures I'm looking at. Maybe it's a solved problem. I don't have to think too much. Maybe this is something that people face in general, and probably, yeah.
So you're talking about a case where you have a user, they apply an admission webhook maybe on cluster role modification, and you roll out a new version of Kubernetes, and Kubernetes has a startup, a post-start hook that tries to write cluster roles, and the admission webhook for the user improperly or not, doesn't matter. The admission webhook for the user stops an update to the cluster roles made by the new kube-apiserver, and thus you are not getting a yes, I'm ready, and thus your upgrade stops. Is that the story you're talking about?
Yes, that is the story. And in this case, they could be not responding well because of a bug. Maybe the webhook is down for some reason and not any request is going through. It's a kind of a neglected cluster, but for a platform operator, it's still a cluster that they have to deal with. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. So is this a problem that people usually see? I know that other places, sometimes platform operators don't allow resources to deal with like putting stars in the resource segment in webhooks, or maybe not allowing cluster roles to be part of the webhook. So in those could be very specific use cases, but I'm just curious to understand how it happens in other places. This is my first time here again, so I don't know a lot of how operators use their clusters.
So my thoughts on this is you don't have a upgrade problem. You have a webhook problem that you happen to notice when you attempt upgrades. And really you have a product problem because do you own the control plane or do your users own the control plane? If your users own the control plane, then you don't have this problem. If you own the control plane, then why are your users installing webhooks like this? I'll selfishly pitch an idea that I've brought up a few times, which is we don't really offer a platform admin concept that is more powerful than the cluster admin concept. And I think that would be useful. The way I see it working specifically is having a deny rule. So you can deny actions to, that goes in front of RBAC because you can't use RBAC for this. But a deny rule that could go first and forbid certain actions from cluster administrators, reserving them for platform administrators. In practice today, the only sort of platform administrative thing that we offer is access to the disk environment that API server is running in, so config files and stuff. Cluster admin doesn't let you change that stuff. Platform admins can change that stuff. But we don't have this concept baked in any of our authorization rules, so it's not a very reasonable division right now, in my opinion.
Have you heard about people asking about this problem? So not people usually deal with applications, but as a platform operators or people who run the clusters and not, there are probably in large corporations, there are two parts of the where people creating clusters, and then there are cluster operators who install stuff on them. Have you seen this problem in general?
Funny story. Google came and asked for a feature about webhooks to help control the webhooks that got created.
Say that. What was the ask about? Sorry, I missed.
Oh, webhooks, so that they would be able to write a webhook to tell whether it was a user creating a webhook that would interrupt some critical thing.
Okay. And this is not as widely asked feature that I should like spend time and figure out something in here. You're saying it's just certainly a product and very focused to every user scenario and not a very generic scenario I should think about.
I think the deny rule that I mentioned is feasible and would help a lot. I think the webhook thing is very debatable, so I'm not sure if that's going to go somewhere or not. Yeah, that's my thought.
Okay. I think I did not get all the things or all the aspects of what you mentioned about the first part. So I probably have to reach out to you maybe on Slack to understand more about it, about the isolation you mentioned. But yeah, I don't want to spend the time in the meeting to refresh my knowledge.
Yeah, we've had this conversation a few times before, so you may. I don't know exactly which. You might search through the agenda document and look at some of the linked recordings. If you search for webhook, I think that'll probably get you to the one that we talked about it the most at.
Yes, about the idea that you mentioned first, is that also discussed?
Yeah, I think we also talked about that in that same meeting.
Yeah, and a deny authorizer in front of RBAC or a webhook in front of RBAC was, I think, positively received by sig-auth. I'd have to go back and double check those notes, but I thought that it was. I'm in favor of it.
Okay. I'll do more homework and then ask more questions. So thank you very much for the guidance.
Sure. All right. Yeah, sorry we can't can't be too much more helpful, but
that's fine. I'm looking for guidance. That's all I'm looking for, and I'll find my way through, ask more questions, and figure it out.
yeah,
I also
yeah.
linked to a couple of the key issues that have like some prior art, and it looks like the June 2nd meeting. I just searched webhooks and found should we webhooks reference there. So
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That is me. Thank you very
much. Should we go look at the stuff in the backlog, Fede?
Yes, let's do that. So I opened them in advance. So it looks like I think somebody from Controller Webhooks. By the way, in the future, for the people in the meeting, if you add items to the agenda or to the backlog, please put your name next to it, because sometimes we are curating the agenda before this meeting and we don't know who to contact or if the person is going to be in the meeting. But that said, I think somebody in Controller Webhooks, SIG Controller Webhooks, is doing some housekeeping as they should, and to help us. So they went through these documents that I think we didn't pay a lot of attention recently. Okay, so for example, this one, yeah, it's assigned to me and David, 2020. This one I see Antoine in the meeting too, assigned to Antoine from Mike. Hold on, some controls got into the way. This one from Jordan hasn't been updated, since 2020. And this one from team, nobody's assigned, 2017. Okay, anyways, there was some progress, but not a lot. So I think, I don't know how to tackle this one. Looks like we have some, maintenance to do. We didn't pay a lot of attention. We can ask for help. If we ask for help and then people come, saying, hey, I want to help, but they don't have the knowledge and, we have to review things, we need to guarantee somebody on our side is going to have the bandwidth to do it.
I could try to do a PR against the one issue there of mine that you mentioned.
That would be great.
Yeah, I think if we can find volunteers here, that'd be great. Don't everybody talk at once.
I'm actually trying to remember the namespace annotation thing. I thought I remembered us deciding on groups were k8s.io and for API groups, and that for annotations it was Kubernetes.io. Is that recollection correct, Jordan?
That matches my memory. I'm sure there are counter examples you could find, but.
And so is this solved, or did we not document it? Or maybe we just don't have a way to catch people using Kubernetes.io annotations?
I think it was the I'm not sure we documented for annotations, and we certainly don't have a way to catch annotations. The API group stuff, we have a check in place, I'm pretty sure, but the annotations are just everywhere.
All right, so do you want to give that a time slice, David?
In terms of documenting it, sure. In terms of enforcing it, honestly, I can't think of a way to do that.
I mean, I can think of ways, but they're not good.
David, be creative. A panic in the Kube API server if a annotation that doesn't match the structure is submitted.
Yeah.
Very.
I can't think of a way to do it that won't result in my home address showing up on the internet. But in terms of documentation, yeah, I can definitely do that. Explain that the standard is Kubernetes IO if it's not already.
Okay. So
I should. I also want to say I think the server-side apply and the priority and fairness efforts put out really helpful documentation. When I Google those things, I generally find something useful to send people. So that's super. It's actually super useful to have good documentation.
okay, looks like so.
Yeah, patch strategy specifically. I hope that we can include a strong recommendation that people start using server-side apply.
Okay, looks like Mike volunteered to take care of this one.
Oh, Antoine seems to think it's fixed. That's interesting. Okay. Maybe that one's further.
Okay, so looks like between Antoine and Mike, we are covering this one. This one.
Yeah, I'll check what Antoine did, and if it's not fixed, I'll try to just make a PR for the rest.
Thank you, Mike. This one looks like I heard that David, you will use some of your abundant free time to do the documentation part.
Yes, I will. I will go ahead and find our API conventions where it's listed in there. Hopefully, looks like it's already listed on the public doc as we reserve them all. So it's just a matter of getting the internal ones updated.
Okay, and maybe, you know, we can do, I don't know if we are going to solve these other two. This one, and I haven't even seen this one. So
that looks enormous. I don't know how we can do this.
And then this one, I don't know. Jordan, this is yours.
That's not especially API machinery. Did I label it API machinery? I apologize if I did. I probably did.
It's also labeled architecture.
Yeah, this was mostly focused on the API review governance subproject for architecture.
Okay.
Oh, it labeled it because I just tagged in API machinery. Yeah, you can drop the API machinery label, which just means it won't be visible to you anymore, and it'll be my own private, shameful, unattended issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think this is API machinery specific.
Sounds good. And maybe for this one, I see a lot of Antoine and Joe comments through these. So maybe I was wondering, Leila, is this something you can take a look and see if you and your team can take a pass?
Yes, sounds good. I will take a look.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, this was very reactive, and I appreciate everybody's willingness to help. I'm sure there are more. I will connect with Bobby and see if you know, he's worried about other ones, and we can list them and go through them. Okay.
All right. Should we call it a little early?
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Good to see you. Stay safe. And I hope you have a good rest of your week. We'll see you next meeting.
Bye.
See ya.